Hello, my name is Janice B. Gordon, and this is Scale Your Sales Podcast. Welcome to Scale Your Sales Podcast, listed number 9 of 43 podcasts for every sales professional. I am Janice B. Gordon, the customer growth expert, awarded the RevTech Strategist of 2024. In today's episode of Scale Your Sales Podcast, my guest talked about her early sales career and a pivotal moment when she became more authentic in her sales. She talks about her experience that benefits many sales leaders to help them to optimize their sales strategy, talking about their company's 10 guiding principles, mentioning intention a lot, along with abundance. She also gave a story of a company when asked, it's quite a large, well-known company, but when asked to show, asked about their sales process, they showed Salesforce. And when the sales process is not clearly defined, then there is many opportunities for salespeople to go in their own directions. It's not connected, and then you're not going to get the revenue that you're looking for, which is a common problem. So you're going to love this conversation. We talk a lot about our own shared experience. My next guest is CEO of Blind Zebra, making sales simple, helping B2B sales teams simplify selling through their BZ sales operating system. Welcome to Scale Your Sales Podcast, Stephanie Neale.
Thanks, Janice. Thanks so much for having me. I'm excited for our conversation.
Oh, I'm looking forward to this as well. So the first question I have got for you, with all of your experience, aspects of sales leadership and customer success strategy throughout your career, Stephanie, could you share a pivotal experience or strategic shift in your sales approach that impact customer outcomes?
That's a good one. Well, I would say, actually, I was just talking to a coach, one of my coaches, about this morning, and we were working on my story. And I told her the story of how when I first got out of college, I literally took the first job offered to me because it was offered and it happened to be in sales. So I was an accidental salesperson. I got into it. I loved it. I was really successful. We had lots of good training. So all different types of training. My company invested in us a lot and it really helped. But I always felt like there was a little bit of a hint of manipulation, and it was always the manipulation to get to the yes. And as we all know, the yes is not always the right answer for everyone. And then later, I was exposed to Blind Zebra, which is the company I work for now. But we teach guiding principles, and there are 10 ways of being. But the 3 that really spoke to me were having good intention, seeing the world as an abundant place, and detachment from the outcome. So when I started being more authentic in my own sales process, not only did it help me be okay with what I did and become really proud of what I did for a living, but it helped the customer because I no longer was so attached to getting to the yes. I was attached to creating a great experience, a great process, and helping them to whatever they actually needed versus, whatever my company was trying to get me to sell them.
And that's interesting. So at what point did you kind of shift from, feeling that there was a bit of manipulation here to get to the yes? What point in your long career was that?
Well, fortunately for me, it was pretty early. I was about 3 years into that first job. I was actually calling on car dealerships, so retail car stores all over the country. And there are a lot of great people in that industry. And then there are also a lot of things that they're known for in that industry that are sometimes on the less desirable side of sales. So fortunately, I was able to have that experience early, not only in my career, but in that job. And as I grew in that position in that industry, it also had an impact on the people that I worked with because they saw the way that we did business and the way that we carried ourselves and had good intention. And I think that it kind of peer pressure or something, but it kind of rubbed off on them as well. So yeah, fortunately, it was early.
And so it's interesting because, you know, like selling into the car industry, you would think that you, at the time you were speaking their language, you know, it was like their love language, wasn't it, really? So it perhaps wasn't something that grated with them. Did it grate more with you? And what was it in you that you felt, this is not the way, you know, I want to do it? What was that?
You mean before I was exposed to the
Yeah.
ideas? Yeah.
Yeah, because as I
Um,
say, it would have been the car industry's love language of, you know, sales at all costs and everything.
yes. Yes, and very much that is the case in a lot of those stores. Just for me personally, the way that I was raised, you know, my own morals and guiding compass, it just felt out of alignment with me because I didn't want to be dishonest. I didn't want to be you know, overdoing it. I really truly wanted to be able to listen to people and to figure out if we were best for them or not. So that's what grated on me. And yes, there were times when it was in opposition to my clients. I worked with resellers sometimes. So I would be working with a reseller, and the reseller is selling the end car dealer in this case, and they wanted to employ certain sales tactics and then bring me in. And there were times that I said, listen, I'm not going to play that way. You know me, you've worked with me. I'm not going to do that. And there were a few that I knew very well that would go, oh, okay, Steph, I know. We got to be upfront. We got to tell the truth. And I'm like, yeah, these are just the baselines. I'm sorry.
It's interesting because the reason why I asked that, Stephanie, you know, I probably interview 60% women. The whole
Love
point of
that.
this podcast is to have a diversity of views. So 6% women or more, actually, because I've interviewed out of 5 people today, 4 are women, you know.
Ah, love it.
And, you know, ethnic minorities as well, from around the world. So it's not just kind of US focus, it's globally. When we're looking at our customers, we're often speaking to global customers. So I really wanted this podcast to reflect that global marketplace. And so the reason why I asked you this is because I have found with speaking to so many female sales leaders and people around the revenue generating function that might be female, it's quite common for them to say, you know, they started in the industry. Well, most people fell into the industry, but they started
Yeah.
in the industry and there became a point where they thought, this wasn't for me. I'm going to go in another direction. And the direction that they went in, they were more successful. It was more authentic, but they were doing it years before it became a thing. So that's why I thought, I wonder if it was the similar for you.
Yes, it was. And I love what you're doing to elevate female voices. I saw you years ago at a conference that was just for women out in Napa. And that was transformative for me in my
Yeah.
career. And I made so many great relationships with other women, some that I'm still very close to today. But as I talk to young women, as they're either transitioning careers or they're coming out of school, they're looking for something to do. Sales is often not on the list for that reason. And so I love that I can really bring forward and hopefully bring that mentality to people earlier in their career so that we get more females in sales. We need them. So,
Yeah, and it reflects our buyers. There are more female buyers. I think the stats are at the moment. I mean, obviously in senior leadership, whether it's in sales or the, you know, purchasing, there's more males at the top.
yeah.
However, the stats are at the moment that 80% of senior buyers are male, but 80% of their pipeline of buyers coming up, millennials and below, are female. So what's happening is that shift of more people in the buying industry, this is B2B, are female, and more of them will be in female in leadership. So the people that we are appealing to are not going to look like they traditionally look. So the sales team need to start evolving and changing the makeup of that team to reflect their customers and buyers.
Yes. Well, I love to hear those stats. I had not heard those. I was quoting some older ones about, how many women are in sales and how many are in sales leadership at a speaking event I was at the other day. And it still astounds me that even, I've been in the business or I've been selling for 20, 25 years, that it seems like we're still having that same conversation. So I'm really excited to hear about what you just said about, at least elevating in other roles, and let's get more women selling.
Yeah, and I think the thing that's powerful, I mean, Stephanie, we've been talking from Napa, we have been talking about this. We're aware of this. It's like,
Yes.
you don't need to preach to the converted. But I think what's powerful is when the customers are looking or driving it, then perhaps sellers and sales operations are more willing to take what they consider to be the risk. And we know women are the best salespeople, that to take the risk. But actually, that's where the market is moving. So, I'm encouraged by it. And, this is why I want to make sure that we're representing it on this podcast. So, Stephanie, I didn't realize that you were at Napa as well. I'd forgotten about that, actually. So, thank you for mentioning that. Yeah,
Yes.
It was an incredible event.
It was
Absolutely.
so great.
Yeah, it was. It was,
Yep.
with Mary Shea and
Yes.
sponsoring it. It was incredible.
Yes, I loved that. And I would do it again in a heartbeat. So just a little plug to Outreach if they want to get all of us together again. And the location didn't suck. So I'm happy to go back to Napa.
Definitely. And what a great experience that is, which leads into my next question around experience. Like how much of an impact do you think experience the buyers and customers has on the sales results? What do you think is the connection there?
So if I'm selling, how much experience the customer has buying?
Yes, the kind of experience that the buyer has. Is the better the experience, are they more likely to do the deal because their experience of the process of buying was so good?
Yes, I do think so. I'm in a unique seat. You're kind of the same way. When I'm selling, I'm using what we teach. So they're seeing a bit of the process. So if they buy into that, then they usually buy into us. But long before that, I think that if you can run a really efficient and effective process, people appreciate that. And I get pushback sometimes when working with salespeople that they don't want to be too aggressive. Again, back to how we're all showing up. They don't want to be too aggressive. They don't want to suggest that maybe we get the next call scheduled. Basic things that we've all been taught, but people still have that resistance to. And I have found that even when buyers buy all the time, even if they're in procurement, and that's their job, they often don't know how to buy what you do. I mean, you're not buying these big software purchases every day. You're not buying sales coaching or training. You're just not signing up for those things on the regular. So you are the expert. And if you can guide them through the most efficient, effective process, they appreciate it. So I always try to teach people to lean into being assertive. And you can be super assertive if you have that good intention part. So if you put those things together, I found that it's a great experience for the customer. And we do see, I actually have tracked this before, that closing percentages go up. And even if they don't, you get to the no quicker, which is better for everybody. It's not wasting time.
Yeah. And I think also, Stephanie, it's the quality of questions that you ask that leads people through where they might start to anticipate there's going to be an issue here. Who are the detractors around the decision making? Like, how can I help you? What information do you need from me to bring them across to the, what we want them, the kind of decision we want them to make? Help. I'm asking you questions to help you understand your own process and where there may be blocks and barriers.
Yes, I love that. So many people, we were all taught growing up that those are objections and you want to overcome the objection. We actually recently, I just added, and we've been adding this to our process, a yellow flags call. So before we started recording, you and I were talking about NFL, American football, and our founder happens to be a referee. So he throws yellow flags when he sees things that are questionable on the field. So now we actually, even at the very beginning, I will talk through, hey, the third step of our process is we're going to have a yellow flags call. So I'm going to be listening for things that might get in our way, that we should probably talk about and dig in further. And I will be looking at things that I think could get in our way. And I also want you to bring 2 or 3 things to that meeting that you think could. And then it gets it all on the table.
Yeah.
And we're not like trying to dodge them saying no with our rose-colored glasses on. So yes, and that's the questions. It's the questions that you ask during that call and the questions that you dive into what those yellow flags are or resistance points. So I totally agree. You got to go there. People are afraid to go there. I don't know if you've experienced that, but I feel like they are at
Absolutely,
times.
Stephanie, and you know, because they don't want to get a no. But as you say, the quicker you get to know, the quicker you can say. You now can investigate. Is it no, never, or is it no, not right now, or is it no, no because you know resources, whatever it may be. You want to go there, don't you?
Yes, because it's not going to change to yes magically if you let it sit in your pipeline for 3 months.
Yeah, exactly. But you also reminded me, Stephanie, the words that we use in this industry. And I've talked about this. I talked about this quite a lot a couple of years ago through the podcast because it really irked me. The way that we use no, what it was a sales expert messaged me and said, "Are you killing it today?" And I messaged back and I said, "Oh, I'm not killing anything today or any day." You know, like talking about customers as targets, you know,
Yes.
killer, crushing, all of these words that we use, and it's really just not helpful. Objection handling. I mean, that's disrespectful to them. They're asking a question. They've got a
Right.
problem. There's a barrier, you know, and the onus is of you to actually find that as early as possible and answer the question. Why do we need to call it objection? Why is that something negative?
I totally agree. And it's back to, the things that turn people away. I don't want to put people into pain. That was all the thing for a long time. I'm like, I don't want to put people into pain. And yes, so totally objections. Gosh, I could go on, but no others are coming to me right now, but I totally agree that we've just
Yeah.
got to change because the way we talk about things is the way that we then show up about things, even if we don't, connect the dots on that,
Yeah,
in our brains.
absolutely. Totally agree with you. And, you know, if it's in our mind in that way, that it's an objection, it's negative, it's possible, then it's like this, and we don't want to deal with it, and we're going to shut it off. And as opposed to if we use the right type of language that's quite open and it's pleasant and it's all about curiosity and we're in partnership, you know, then, you know, we're going to look at this and feel about it. That's the important thing. We were talking about experience. We feel about it more positively.
Yeah. Yeah. When we look at the prospect, which isn't terrible, but the potential new customer is what I like to say.
Yeah,
We look at them differently.
yeah,
And it is more of a
exactly.
partnership. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's really
it is.
important.
Okay, I'd like your view on your one tried and tested strategy that you'd offer listeners and how to scale their sales.
Yes. So I have found that most companies have a sales process. And often when you ask them to produce what that process looks like, this just happened with a very large company that at least everybody here in the States would know the name of, that is well known for their training. Like they are top of the top and they have great results. So I just have to get that out of the way. Awesome company. And when I asked to see their sales process, they shared screen and pulled up Salesforce. And it had, vetting, discovery, presentation, blah, blah, blah. They're all the same. I mean, you swap in the names, but most of them are really similar. And so when we go to scale, what I have found is not only naming your sales process and being able to clearly articulate it and have every sales rep clearly articulate it. Like Janice, we have 5 steps in our sales process. This usually takes no more than 30 days. We can, of course, conform to your timeline as needed, et cetera. Most people just sort of salespeople just sort of take it a step at a time. And when you don't know what the destination is, it gets really difficult, and you're taking like the winding way to get there. So I have found that if you can have just first off, the basics of a really tight named process that you can actually pull up and show. Some people do timelines really well, and some people do this really well. But if you can do that, that's the first step. And then I think the harder step is having everybody on your sales team run that process the same way. And I don't mean just like, this is how we handle resistance. That's what we call objections. This is how we handle the discovery questions. You call it whatever you want to call it. I'm talking about things like, as a team, what do we do when we get ghosted? As a team, how do we lay out that timeline and choose our target date? How do we manage our forecast? How do we know when it's time to call a deal dead and to clean it out of the pipeline and go get a new one? So I think as I've seen businesses scale, the ones that can really do that well, that's the first step, and it can make a huge difference.
I think one thing that you've reminded me of is it's been transparent and open about it all, really,
Yes.
isn't it? That everyone's on the same page because it is so open and transparent. And also, you made me think of collaboration as well. It's not an individual effort, it's a whole kind of team effort.
Well, if you build those processes based on the person on the other side, then it's just better for everybody. So yes, collaborative, clear. We say clear and efficient around here 100 times a day. Clear and efficient. Like there should be no surprises. You know exactly what's coming, and you can opt out at any time, and so can I. That's another thing that I think in sales we always, you're taught the customer is always right and this and that. And of course, you want to provide good customer service, but there are times when all of us have been engaged with a potential customer, and we know this is not best for us as a company, which means it's probably not going to be best for you because we won't be able to serve you. And there's fear around saying, you know what, just like some companies vet me out, I'm just going to say through what I've found, like this just isn't the best. And that can be an unpopular opinion, especially with your leaders, depending on how they look at the world.
Yeah, and it's often leaders that are the ones that don't back you up, whereas actually the customer will love you all the more as soon as you say, do you know what? I don't think this is the right fit for us and for you. Let me help you move on to where I'm thinking this might actually work better for you. They always come back to you. Your trust levels have just gone up. You probably get, in the neck from your boss who's got other targets that he's looking at, but nevertheless, you've got to do what's in the best interest of your customers, haven't you? Always.
You do. And even if they're not a good fit, they usually know people that are. So they become your raving fans that are out there like, hey, I talked to her and it was great. It wasn't good for us, but based on what she told me, you should give her a call.
Yeah,
so,
exactly. Which is exactly word of mouth. That's the best recommendation you can get. All right, Stephanie, who is your hero or shero?
Well, I did know this one was coming. You gave me a little bit of a heads up on a couple. And I'm going to try to not get too emotional on this one. But one of my first leaders ever, her name was Laurie Grass. This was, gosh, I was young, 20 years ago. I'll date myself. Pretty quickly out of college. And she came in and she was so directive. She was a great coach and a great leader, and she did not shy away from telling you things that you needed to hear, even if you didn't want to hear them. But she was also such a great teacher. So she taught us, and I say us, there was a group of us that were all around the same age and life stages, predominantly women, which was fantastic. And she taught all of us not only about selling and selling with good intention and doing what was right, but also about life. Like we all got puppies at the same time, and we all started getting married and planning weddings at the same time. We had babies together, and she led us through all of that. So early in my career, she was sort of like a mama bear. I always called her my sales mama. So that was an amazing transformative time for me. And then later it became full circle where we both worked at the same pretty large organization. It was a media company here. And we got to work together as peers. And so then it was really neat that we would bounce ideas off of each other. And to be able to have that experience was really full circle. Unfortunately, she passed away in 2017. But she was awesome at raising up that next generation of sales leaders. And I just try really hard. I know there were a lot of us that were impacted by her that try to do the same thing to really help people do better in their career, but also to figure out the things that sometimes can be unique to women in the balance of life and how hard to push on one side of your life or another. So she's awesome. I still choose a word of the year. I know that's kind of a common thing, but that was something she brought to me. And a few years ago, I actually tattooed one on my wrist. You can't see it, my watch is over it, but it says grace. And that was another thing that she taught me. Just have grace for yourself, grace for others. And I believe that I get grace from my higher power as well. So that was, I just always love to talk about her as much as I can because she's not here anymore. And she had that profound of an impact on a lot of us.
Now, Stephanie, I may be based in the UK, but I'm part of the women sales experts. And, you know, I've spoken at various events in America. I have heard about Laurie. I've never met her, I never had the honor to meet. I have heard of her several times.
You're kidding.
I'm not. She has influenced so many people. I mean, here I am, and I know exactly who you're talking about. So, and you think at the time when she was in the industry, when she joined the industry, but then to have the impact she had on so many other women in sales is incredible. And for you to be talking about her now, you know, I think the greatest honor is once you are past and you have a legacy that other people are still talking about you. And I think you've just honored her for that.
No, that's what I hope to do. And yeah, you just hope to have that impact even on one person.
You
and
only need one.
Right. And she did it in a lot less years than most of us are given. So yeah, well, it's amazing. We'll have to offline on how you may have run across her, but she did have a great impact nationwide.
Yeah. Yeah. So Stephanie, how can listeners get hold of you?
Yeah. So probably best way to reach me is our website, which is blind, BLIND -zebra.com. So blind-zebra.com. If you want to email me, it's stephanie@blind-zebra.com. So easy peasy on that.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, it's been so much fun and a great pleasure speaking to you, Stephanie. And thank you for sharing your insights. So thank you for being a guest on Scale Your Sales podcast, Stephanie.
Thank you so much for having me. This was a lot of fun and it inspired me to go think about some things I've been trying to do on the women's sales front. So thank you, Janice. It was great to see you again.
Well, make sure you include me on that.
I will. I'll tap you in.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Scale Your Sales podcast. If you like this discussion, feel free to listen to other episodes or watch the captioned show on YouTube and subscribe to future episodes. I would really appreciate it if you would leave a positive review on iTunes. Thank you.